salads, wild vegetables, but there's a lack of color in my plate, you know. So I'm thinking I need something like peas. I need peas, but I don't have any wild peas. What can I do? And then I thought, oh yeah, that's right. Oxeye daisy flower buds. They kind of look like peas and so on. So I came up with the two first plates, and somebody said, wow, capers. I said, capers. And a light lit up, of course. I hadn't thought of it. And caper, what is it? Vinegar, salt, water, and capers. And the caper is a flower bud. I mean, it grows in North Africa and Southern Europe and so on. And the oxeye daisy capers were born. And you asked Jonathan, we both work with this stuff, and I mean, you just can't get enough of that stuff. People love it. They love the idea that it's daisies, you know, love me not, and so on. So it's a very, everybody knows daisies. And it's delicious, you know, with salmon and salads and so on. So cloning, getting ideas from stuff that exists and building it into whatever you're developing. And I think we can do that with the artisanal side of it, the medicinal side of it. Yeah, I think cloning is a great way. Another second one I would say would be to work with resources that are around you. And a great source of inspiration for me has been the chefs. Chefs not only are the door, they create the door that opens up, well, gives a perspective to the public that this stuff is wonderful. So they take a raw material and they present it to the public, so it's well cooked, it's well presented, it looks good, and it tastes good. And you sometimes could not imagine what they'll do with a product. So they have become, I've surrounded myself with a group of chefs, and I will pick a wild plant somewhere and think that it has potential because I've looked at it, I can harvest it sustainably, it's very abundant. So I'll pick a whole bunch and give it to them. And the understanding is that they're going to work it and give me some feedback. So I don't charge them for it, and I'll bring it to them time and time and time again if they want to keep experimenting. And by, sometimes they'll say, you could do this, you know, or I do this with it, and then, you know, I use their cooking ideas to transform it into something that I can put into a jar to stabilize it, to be able to sell it in Quebec and Ontario and overseas in the States and in Spain and in France where I sell some of my stuff. So chefs are a great source of inspiration. Use the people around you again. And the institutions. Cooking schools, I'm sure you have them here. Don't be scared to go out and talk to the students, especially the ones that end up working and then coming back for upgrading. These are people who are probably have in mind to set up a restaurant, and they may think, this is a line that I could use, you know, wild food in my restaurant, that could give me the angle that will bring the customers in. And they're often very interested in smelling and tasting the stuff that you have, both the stuff that you've produced and other stuff that hasn't been produced yet. You know, we have 350 edible plants in southern Quebec. 350. That's a lot of different plants. And often plants offer a number of different foods. The cattails, for example, I happen to use the cattail hearts, but there are 7 different foods that you can get right from the root to the flower head. So you take 350, multiply by 2 and 3 and sometimes more types of foods that you can get from the same plant, and you're thinking about thousands of different types of food. Now, edible does not mean good. It just means edible. It means you won't fall over. And some of the stuff is bland enough that you don't, you know, I've tried a lot of different plants over and over again because it's so abundant and I can get so much of it so easily, but there's nothing to do with it. You know, I can't think of anything to make it worthwhile. I do stuff in just about all food groups, you know. Jams and jellies and marinades, of course, with nuts and flours and mustards. And mustards, there's a great story there too, because for many years I'd go out with a big plastic bag and find the mustard, you know, it's starting to ripen, but it doesn't ripen evenly, and some of the pods are ready and some of the pods are green. So you take the plant and you pull it out and you shake it and you get a bit of seeds and there's a whole bunch of pods left, and you take it home and you hang it there and let it dry for a couple of weeks, and you get a few more seeds, and I was always running out of seeds. And talking to Jonathan, we get together at least twice a year for 2-3 days, just brainstorming, and he said, yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I used to hate that bloody stuff, the mustard, because I'd have to go out in the fields and root it out. We didn't use pesticides, and I said, that's right, I had to do that too, and I hated the bloody stuff. That's right, I'd forgotten about that, you know. And all of a sudden we're together and we think about it. There are people growing cereal, oats, wheat, and so on, organically. I'm sure they're going to have problems with mustard, and they do. So Jonathan did the base work, and he started calling up organic farmers of grains, cereal grains. And sure enough, get onto a guy, and he asked him, so you have mustard? Oh, he said, I hate that stuff. He said, what do you do with it? Well, he said, some years I bury it, and some years I burn it. And so Jonathan says, well, we give you $1 a pound for it. What? He said. So there was my source of mustard. And I guess the guy was so proud of getting these 400 pounds, $400. But this is $400 that's more fun than anything else. I mean, I used to throw this stuff away and I got $400. So he was telling his friends about this. I get a call one night. He says, you buying mustard seed? And I said, well, yeah, I do, yeah. He says, I got 5,000 pounds, 50 cents a pound. So, you see? So you have to be open to those kinds of possibilities. And of course, the exchange is what created it between Jonathan and I. So use those resources around you, give out your stuff, get some feedback, really, really important. And of course, I don't know if you have, you know, food development institutions. Dave referred to them, but they are fantastic. They are an incredible source of possibilities because they have the equipment, technicians are trained, they know about all sorts of risks to health if your processing methods are not correct, and they can really help you with this. In some provinces too, there are incubators, basically places where people can access equipment to develop new products, and often with technicians available to help you with some of the finer points. When you start developing things complex, more complex, like winemaking, for example, or yogurts, or certain types of juices, it's easy to make a juice, but will it have a shelf life? Well, you need equipment and technicians to help you with that. And these are places that will help you get through that, and they'll supply you eventually with the information you need in terms of equipment. What kind of equipment? How much is it going to cost me? And what is the process, and can I get the training for it? And then you can make a sound decision about how or if you're going to produce that stuff. You know, juices, you have to think of a bottling line, for example. You want to, you know, you can start with 1,000 jars, and it doesn't really work that way. So you have to, you know, you have to think about the investment that's going to be required to put this product on the line. So anything that becomes more complicated than just making jams or jellies, I think we should refer to schools like that. Which brings me to a point that I wanted to make in this presentation, is that if you're working in the food sector, you have to consider every time you develop a new product that it has to be safe, that it has you know, an adequate shelf life, that it's not going to start layering 5 months down the road where you know, certain types of butters or caramels, for example, you'll see them in stores, and the sugar, the liquid is all gone to the bottom and the solid is at the top. Not very good for sales. So how do you homogenize you know, the stuff and keep it that way? Those are things that most of us you know, who work with food don't know. So we have to learn that. And these institutions will give you that kind of information. Use the inspection agency in your province, or in some cases it will be the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Use them as colleagues rather than somebody who places restrictions on your work. These people have seen all sorts of things. It's a lot